Hello scholars, welcome back to the Kemet Maasai Academy as we continue our series of motivational videos for students. And remember, students of all ages, from 0 to 100. Alright, so I'm reading from the Students Master Plan, Hardcore Rules for a Lifetime of Success. The topic I'm looking at this morning is calligraphy. Is it worth the effort? For much of my career as a homeschool teacher for my own children and private tutor for others, I have put little to no significance on calligraphy. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned. I have been very lax, almost to the point of negligence. I've only just been trying to redeem myself. Calligraphy is the art of beautiful writing. It was once the forte of only the most gifted scribes in ancient times. Literacy of the masses is a fairly common luxury, lest we forget. Calligraphy was a coveted and fiercely guarded skill, restricted to the nobility and aristocracy. Now, it is the mission of every progressive nation to have 100% literacy. Well, in any given population, many may be able to read and write, but only a handful can boast of having beautiful handwriting. Some are just barely legible, and this seems to be a scourge mainly among males. Whenever I deride a student about his atrocious handwriting, he would say, "Miss, I plan on becoming a doctor." Doctors are notorious for producing some of the most indecipherable hieroglyphs. So you know, hieroglyphs are the Egyptian picture writing, which they referred to in their language as Medu Neter, the language of the gods, right? So it's a running joke. You may have heard also this running joke that doctors have some of the most notoriously horrible handwriting, and some people feel it is deliberate because they don't want you to make out what they're writing on your chart or on the prescription is some secret code between the doctor and the pharmacist. It probably is, because I have never been able to make out something that's a doctor, right? I mean, it must be some secret code. And I notice with my students, the males typically have an issue with calligraphy, you know, with their penmanship. And this is at a point, I noticed that this is at a point where they leave from script to cursive. I've noticed that. So the boys, when they are in anywhere from grade 1 to grade 3, they will write beautiful script, right? When they just learn how to write, how to form their letters, yes, it's big, you know, the writing will be big, and beautiful, well formed. And I've noticed that as soon as the teacher starts teaching them cursive, for those who do, it's like the writing goes down, the quality of the writing goes down. I don't know if that is it, or that boys just, once they reach a certain age, they just because they have to do more writing, you know, you're at a higher grade, you're expected to do more writing from the board, and so the boys tend to be less careful and less meticulous, especially when they have to be speeding to try to get everything done. So the writing begins to deteriorate, the quality of the writing begins to deteriorate. And I don't find this issue with many of the girls. The girls will generally have beautiful handwriting straight up, grade 1 all the way up to college level. You know, I'm really yet to see a girl who has terrible handwriting. But I can tell you, most of the boys, the male students I've encountered, most of them, you just can't make out their writing. Or because of exposure to the writing, teachers kind of, it's like you develop a sixth sense. You're able to decipher it, but the average person taking it up would be, what on earth is this, right? As a teacher, yes, I have developed that skill to be able to take up because for some reason I have mainly boys. I always get mainly boys in my class. For some reason the boys find me, and so I have had to deal with their handwriting. So I've just developed a system of figuring out what it is they are saying. But I always say to them, remember, the examiner doesn't know you. The examiner might not even see your name. They're just going to see a number. And if they can't make out what you're trying to write, it might be the best essay. It might be the most thrilling story. You might have the most wonderful points. But if they can't make out what you're saying, you're not going to get the grade. You might very well fail simply because you're not communicating. You're not getting the point across to the person because there is that barrier, the language barrier, the written barrier. You might be expressing yourself well in terms of writing out, but you can't make the transfer because the other person can't read what you have written. So that is very important, you know. You can have the best of things on your side, but if you can't get it over to the other side, they will not know. The examiner will not know. And if it's not your personal teacher who has become, you know, used to your way of writing and kind of know how to decode it, you might be putting yourself at a severe disadvantage. Alright, so we're talking about the doctors and their indecipherable hieroglyphs. I have allowed my children to write at their own pace, not stressing neatness or legibility, as long as my gifted and experienced eyes could make out what they had scribbled on the paper. I fancied there was something artistic and liberating in doing so. I allowed their handwriting to evolve in its own time, usually for the better. But that usually took time. I have always been very patient when it came to my students' handwriting. But the parents have been the exact opposite. They would insist upon the child mastering calligraphy, the sooner the better. I'm still on the fence when it comes to whether or not this matter deserves some urgency. I suppose I would have to be responsible and say, try as best as you can to write legibly and neatly, if not beautifully. Right, so this is something that I was lagging behind in as a teacher. I was not insistent enough in the early years and coming up. I pretty much allowed my student to just be, and that's the general approach I take with my students. I allow them to be, you know, whether it's how they wear their hair, you know, how they express themselves, and it came to the writing as well. I just allowed them to write the way they wanted, and I tried to adapt, tried to decode what they were saying. But then I got to the point where I am now, which, you know, where I started saying to them, listen, you have to do better. And the parents were always insisting. So I would be saying to the parents, okay, deal with this aspect of it at home. You know, if you want them to write a particular way, work with them at home with their handwriting. But for the past couple years, you know, I've really been more of a stickler and insisting that the boys especially up their game and be more presentable in their writing, because it can really make the difference between a fail and a pass. if the person that you're presenting the work to cannot make out what you are trying to say, it doesn't matter if you have the most brilliant piece, the most brilliant story, the most brilliant essay, all the answers correct if they can. And this goes for not just language but figures, because if you're writing a 9 and it looks like a 4, your answer will be seen as incorrect. And there are many figures that students don't write properly, they don't form them properly, and so your answer can be misinterpreted as a totally different answer. And again, if it's someone who is not familiar with your way of writing, you might get it wrong, and that takes away from your overall score. So I would encourage you to put a lot of emphasis on your penmanship. Alright? Put a lot of emphasis on your penmanship. Try to give at least legible writing. If it's not going to be beautiful calligraphy, at least let it be legible. If you have been motivated by this video, please share it with others so they too can be motivated. Share it with parents, friends, other teachers, other students. And remember, the Kemet Maasai Academy has videos on mathematics as well. So it's not just the student motivational videos. We have mathematics videos from grade 4 to grade 11. So that is something you can absolutely take advantage of. Share those videos as well so other students can benefit. And remember, our ultimate aim is to drive away that fear of mathematics that so many persons have. Dissipate the fear. We don't want that around here. Mathematics is beautiful, is wonderful, and that's the attitude we're going to have towards it. So my scholars, I will see you in the next video.